Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is the Paddy Power, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.
Hello and welcome to this Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Playle, joined in the studio as per usual by Nick Watts. We also have Tom Siegel and Darren Hughes from Paddy Power. Welcome, Darren, your first Monday Postcast. What a treat. What's he first off? No eco-pods this week, but back home in Oxford for you?
Yeah, weekend in Oxfordshire, which was nice. Spent a bit of time with the family. That was good, and cheering Wissahick on home in the Cambridgeshire. So it was a nice afternoon as well. So very leisurely. Didn't do too much, but I mean they're always good, aren't they? So yeah,
good
very
shout
happy.
With that. That was a shameless plug there, Wissahick on, but well done. Yeah, he was impressive in the end, wasn't he?
He won nicely. Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think he's a bit flattered, but you don't care if you're on them, do you?
Certainly not. And Tom, how far did you get with persuading the wife to get you in on those eco-pods?
It's not started yet, Maddie. It's going to happen, though. And Watsy sold it so nicely last weekend, the eco-pod and the caddying, that I think she'll definitely be up for the eco-pod anyway. Yeah.
And what about you? What you been up to? Watching the Ryder Cup? Anything like that?
Didn't watch much of the golf. No, not my... I like golf. I don't like the Ryder Cup so much. What did I do this weekend? Refereed a football match. My little son plays.
Oh.
Yeah. So on Saturday mornings, I'm
send anyone off?
I tried, but as they're only 11, I don't think they're allowed to be sent off. I did send off one of the crowd.
Oh, a pushy parent.
Yeah, pushy parent telling me that it was offside when it wasn't.
That's
a lie,
imagine
actually.
You being
That's
an
a lie. Of course I didn't.
Really tough taskmaster when it comes to that.
Come on, Maddie, I'm a softie, you know that.
Darren, you've been working all weekend. How was it?
It wasn't too bad, Maddie, to be honest. I think Frank might have mentioned here Friday we had a work night out on Friday night, so I made things quite difficult on myself by trying to keep up with the lads Friday night and then working Saturday and Sunday. Ended up out Saturday night as well, naturally enough, so feeling a little bit worse for wear this morning, but sure, it's all self-inflicted, so.
It's fine, we won't tell anyone. I'm sure, knowing some of the reps that come on this show, I'm sure that would have been a messy night out. But anyway, we'll get cracking with the ARC preview. The big race, obviously, approaching. Enable still in there this morning. Cracksman still in there this morning. Sea of Class and Crystal Ocean, they've got to be supplemented. But how are you feeling about it at this stage, Watsy? Because there's lots of murmurs about the ground and there not being enough rain for Cracksman and all this. How do you see the picture?
Yeah, that's the current vibe, isn't it? There's not going to be enough rain around for Cracksman to run, which is a real shame because that would be 2 years running where, you could conceivably run in an ARC in 2 years where he missed it because obviously they've got the backstop of Ascot where you've got a good chance of getting some softer ground for him to go again. So that's a real pity because he was kind of my each way angle into the race, against Enable. Now he looks as though he's not going to make the gig. I was really beforehand trying to dredge something up that's more interesting than Enable because it's all been said about her. She's obviously got a fantastic chance, looked as good as ever last time out, and if you ignore the bounce and those kind of things and don't believe in that particularly, then she could easily do a Trev and win back-to-back runnings. Aidan O'Brien mentioned recently he might run Capri, and I kind of, if there was to be not a mad result, but a big price horse finishing in the frame, put it that way, then I could just about see Capri doing that. I know he's very disappointing by Wildgeist last time out, but he wouldn't have been anywhere near Cherry Ripe on his first run back after a long time. I can forgive him his below par run in this race last season because he put in a really hard shift in the St Leger, and that you go back to that race, it was a brilliant Leger. He beat Stradivarius in second, Rekindling was in there, Coronet was in there too, he beat a lot of them. If he was in
Crystal Ocean as well.
Crystal Ocean, of course, the big finished second, of course. So the form of that race is absolutely fantastic. If he was anywhere near that kind of level now, which takes a bit of believing on that last run, but like I said, Aidan wouldn't have had him ready for that. It was a trial. He could have come on in leaps and bounds for it. I wouldn't be surprised if he took his chance to see a big run from him and finish in the frame. But can I see him beating Enable or anything else beating Enable? No, I can't.
Yeah, very interesting. On that similar vein, I think Kew Gardens is interesting. Darren, how do they bet at this stage? Have you had any sort of movements in the market recently?
Well, Maddie, I'd just like to announce on behalf of Paddy Power that we are actually gone non-runner, no bet on the ARC as of this morning, which, as far as I'm aware, is we're the only ones in the industry to have done that.
Brilliant.
So, in line with that, we're also top price Enable at 5-4. So we're 5-4 non-runner, no bet. And again, as far as I'm aware, you won't get better than that price anywhere. So I'll just read out the betting as it goes. It's Enable 5-4, Sea of Class 4-1, Wildgeist 7-1, Cracksman is 8s, Kew Gardens is 10s, and it's 12s bar.
Brilliant. And now, Tom, you mentioned last week how you think, although there's, some really top quality horses in there, that there's still some questions to be answered, and it's an each-way market that's a bit interesting. Who's your number one each-way player now? Have you had more time to sort of mull it over?
Oh, not so much, but I've backed Waldgeist. I backed Waldgeist at, 33-40 to 1 at the start of the season after he won his first race. So I've always been a Waldgeist fan. Well, not when he comes fifth, I won't be, no. But I like him. I think he's getting better. 4-year-old colts have a shocking record in it. I'm not one for trends really, but I think it's like 4 out of the last 30 years have gone for older colts. I think fillies have a great record. So I'm sort of, believe it or not, after spending about 6 months telling everyone that Sea of Class is overrated, I'm sort of warming to her a bit because I don't think there's that much strength in depth. I really don't. I get your Kew Gardens angle. I don't think Crystal Ocean's good enough. I don't like Capri if the ground's good or faster at all. Defoe won't run, surely. Kitesurf wants soft ground. Study Your Man's not good enough. So you're looking down there and you're sort of thinking, having been sort of against Sea of Class for a bit, I think maybe 4-1 might not be a bad price anyway, if that's what it was. Darren, I can't remember what you said now. But if that...
4 is 4 is time.
4, yeah. I think those two are the obvious ones. I think as you say, Kew Gardens is quite interesting. I think he's won his last 2 Group 170, so maybe he might be the best 3-year-old colt around. So yeah, I get that. Maybe I might sort of do more research and come down on the side of Kew Gardens when I think about it more, but I'd have to be against Enable, even though I love her and I think she's probably one of the best fillies I've ever seen.
Wow.
I wouldn't back her at even money or 5-4 or whatever she was there. She's 1 run back, all-weather run, very fast ground. Who knows? I think horses can sort of get away with it on the all-weather. They don't feel the pain, but running in a arc on firm ground after an injury
Do you think it will be firm then?
I think it'll be fast, yeah. I think it will be. I think the thing about French ground is that it gets very fast and very slow. They'll throw some water on it, but if as everyone keeps telling me, there's no rain forecast, I think it's probably good to firm out there already. I think it'll be on the quick side, yeah.
And moving on to Cracksman, then you do not think he'll run? No
chance.
Do you think he'll go
no
champion
chance of
stakes?
Running. No, I don't think he'll run. I think Johnny G was talking about that at the weekend. I think it's very unlikely that he'll run. So, look, I'm a big fan of his, but I wouldn't fancy him on fast ground. No, I think it would be between Sea Class, Waldgeist, Enable, and Kew Gardens. Not breaking any promises there, not splitting the atom there. But I really don't think, apart from there's not that much strength in depth. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, there's your ARC picture updated. Then we'll run down the rest of the ARC card just after this.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new, fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back. Now, as promised, we're going to talk about some of the other races on ARC weekend. First off, the Prix de l'Opera. Now, Lawrence is looking likely to go to the Sun Chariot at Newmarket, so she's probably not going to run. But we have the Nassau winner, Wild Illusion, in there with you, who won the Prix Rothschild, as well as Lati Dar. First off, how do we bet, Darren?
Sure thing, Maddie. So, Wild Illusion is at the top of the market at 5-2. We've Magic Wand in next at 5s. With You is 6-1, as is Lati Dar. Urban Fox and Lawrence are both 7s, along with Wind Chimes, and Coronet is 9s.
Brilliant. Sticking with you, Darren, then any strong opinion on this one?
I would have serious doubts about the strength of Wild Illusion's form, to be honest with you. I think the draw is quite important to her, especially if she's going to go and try and make all. I'm really not sure how good Urban Fox is. I know her last run behind Nonza wasn't too bad, but I'm really not sure how good she is as a filly. The one for me that's really interesting, I think, is With You. Very, very strong form so far, and I think she ran a cracker behind Alpha Centauri the last time, and I really don't think she was helped by the fact she tried to give Alpha Centauri a lead. I don't think there's a horse on the planet that could have done that at the time, so I think she probably would have finished even closer if she hadn't tried to do that. She's the one for me. I think she's a crack in each way bet at 6-1. I'd have doubts about the rest of them.
I'm with you on that one. Drum roll.
Very good, very good.
Go on then, Wazzy.
You're sharp.
Genius.
Oh, I'm just too good for you guys. Go on then.
I wouldn't be as against Wild Illusion. Personally speaking, I thought she took a step forward for being ridden, aggressively over 1 mile and 2 last time. You'd think on breeding that 1 mile and 4, she'd get every inch of that and relish it and possibly want further, but that didn't seem to be the case when she ran behind Magic Wand. 2 starts ago, so they put her back to 1 mile and 2, quite positive with her, and she really seemed to relish that. Busak winner last season, of course, and it'd be interesting if Voracious runs in the. Voracious was 3rd in Nassau and has won the Atalanta Stakes quite well. I think she'll be going for the Sun Chariot on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's okay, watch this space. If Voracious puts in a good effort, and I think she might do in the Sun Chariot, I think she'll run very well. If she were to win that, then it'd make Wild Illusion's claims a whole lot more attractive. But I think,
Soft ground, is that key to her though?
I don't know. I think you can tie yourself in knots sometimes with the ground. I think she'll, go on most things. But yeah, I mean, I think she'll go very close, and I'll take the point about with you as well. I think she's a big danger. But yeah, for me, she just took a good leap forward last time at Goodwood, and I think she's kind of settled now. That's 1 mile and 2, ridden handily, making the most. She probably does stay a little bit further than that, so you can afford to be a little bit aggressive on her. And she's very good. So I think she's the right market leader, and she's the one for me.
Okay, Tom, no love for Lati Dar so far. Do you like her, or do you like something else?
Lati Dar, is she running? Is she? If she runs, she'll win.
I think she's priced up, isn't she?
I think she's miles better than these. No, I don't think she's running. I don't think Lati Dar are running that. I think she'll wait for Ascot. Don't like Wild Illusion, Watsy. Sorry. I might like your Eco pods, but I don't like Wild Illusion at all. I think Magic Wand's miles better than her. We saw that in the Ribblesdale. I think Magic Wand, if the ground's fast, will have a massive chance in this race. Really disappointed that she got picked up on the line the other day over 1.5 miles. I think dropping back to 1 mile 2, I think this is it? I'm guessing. I think so. I think that'll suit her perfectly. I think fast ground's the key to her. I think she's just going to improve again on the back of that last run in the Vermeil. That was a great one. She beat the rest easily. I think her and With You are better than Wild Illusion, and I think the prices are all wrong.
Oh dear, you've got shut down there. Watsy, do you want to retaliate?
Well, no,
sorry, Watsy.
No, the only point I made, I mean, as I'm always saying, I'm very forgiving, but the thing about the Wild Illusion Magic Wand run at Ascot, I thought that was a typical kind of. I thought that was just a flat effort from Wild Illusion. I don't think she was at her best that day, and she's obviously had a bit of a break then from that to Goodwood, different trip, and brought about a bit of improvement. So, we'll find out. But yeah.
No, I wouldn't. That might be right. You might be correct, but there's no way on God's earth they should be 5-2 and 7-1.
Well, he's leading. He's making us all look fools at the minute, Tom, for his Cambridgeshire winner. So we'll see if Watsy can stay on top. Moving on to the Prix de la Forêt, Polydream won the Maurice de Geest. I think if she runs here, she's going to be a really interesting one. Darren, what do you make of this race? Expert Eye in there, Sir Dancelot, Limato, lots of British representatives.
Actually, Maddie, just it came out this morning that Expert Eye is definitely not showing up. Yeah, he's going to go straight to the QE2 at Ascot,
there we go.
According to Teddy Grimthorpe. So I'll just run through the betting here quite quickly. Top of the market is Polydream. He's been clipped in to 7-4 from 9-4 this morning on the back of Expert Eye being confirmed a non-runner.
Okay.
We then have Sir Dancelot in at 7-1. James Garfield is 8-1, as is Limato. Inns of Court is 12s from 20s. Gustav Klimt 12-1. Intelligent 12-1 and Tantheme 12-1.
Okay, Darren, sticking with you. Are you with the favourite?
I'm not, Maddie, to be honest with you. I think again his form is very questionable. I'm really not sure how good James Garfield is, and he only finished a half length in front of him in France earlier on this year. I think Sir Dancelot is obviously fast improving, but I would be again quite a bit of a cynic when it comes to horses who previously were handicappers coming up into group class. Though in fairness to him, he really has come into his own this year. He's improving his sight. Limato, I honestly just feel sorry for the horse, to be honest. It's like asking me to run a marathon. I just wouldn't be able to do it. But if you ask me to talk shite about racing all day, I'll manage that. Stick to 6 furlongs. He should have far more group races to his name than he does. I suppose if gun to my head, I'd go Sir Dancelot, but not a strong opinion on this race at all.
Yeah, Limato won it a couple of years ago, didn't he? But he has won his last 2 races over 6, so I can see that argument. Tom, what do you make of this then? Are you with Darren in that the Maurice de Geest wasn't a great race, or how strong do you think that form is?
I think Polydream, she did pretty well to win, didn't she? The 2 of them on the far side got a massive run on her. I thought she did really well to cut them down. As Darren says, you can pick holes in the form though, and I think you said 7-4 now with expert eye out. Look, it's just nothing. It's just a price thing, isn't it? I'm quite prepared to see Polyjuice. I mean, one thing I would say, it's 7 furlongs around the Longchamp bend there. It's always been a draw race, this, and so I wouldn't be taking 7-4 now about any horse without knowing the draw. Who turns up is the question. Look, there's so many priced up, and we don't have the decks yet. I quite like Aidan O'Brien's filly I Can Fly as going forward. I think she's pretty good. I don't know if she'll run. I think so saying we could back her is ridiculous at this stage until we see the decks. Gustav Klimt's another one that I think back on good ground could run okay, but Polydream, no, not for me at 7-4, not now.
Price game, what see you don't tend to look at the prices too much. What wins?
I quite like Sir Dancelot. I know he ran badly last time, but I think you can accept that because it came on heavy ground at Haydock, which probably didn't suit him at all. Last 3 runs over 7 furlongs, he's won a lot of them. And he's shown different sides to his game. He had to be brave at Goodwood to come through and win late. But at Newbury, I thought was very impressive in the Hungerford, won very nicely. Struck up a great rapport with Gerard Mossé, and there was kind of an inkling that this was coming because he ran 4th in the July Cup earlier on over 6 furlongs, which was a really encouraging run, and he's just kind of putting it all together now. You have got that last run to get over, but I think you could just wipe that off because, the ground was very testing, and if Elsie takes him over there then and he's reunited with Mossé, as I'm sure he will be, then I think he's got this 7 furlongs. He is a specialist. It's a specialist trip, and this is his trip. It's perfect for him.
Okay, moving on to the Prix de l'Abbé de Longchamp. Now, Soldier's Call I thought was a really interesting one in here, but no 2-year-old. I always like to see the 2-year-olds have a go at these races because sometimes I think a lot of the sprinting 2-year-olds don't quite progress to their 3-year-old careers. But the last 2-year-old to win was in 1978. It was Teague, so it was an awfully long time ago. Darren, who have we got at the top of the market? It'd be great to see Batash back again, or is he out again that you're going to tell me?
No, as far as I know, Maddie, he's top of our market at the moment here at 11-8. We've City Light in next at 7-1. Havana Grey and Mabs Cross are both 8-1, as is Soldier's Call. Blue Point is 10s and Harry Angel is 10s as well. And
where do you stand on this race? Are you a Batash fan?
I think he's an absolute head the ball, and I couldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, to be honest with you. I think he is immensely talented, and at his best he would leave all of these in dust. It's just whether or not he will be at his best. Soldier's Call, I know, definitely interesting, especially with the weight allowance that he'd get, but if he was mine, I wouldn't let him near the 3-year-olds. I think sprinters are too liable to boil over and they need looking after. I'd kind of keep him to his own age group for this year. The one I would love to see over 5 furlongs is Harry Angel. I think he could burn a lot of these away if he was led over 5 furlongs. I know they're insistent that he's over 6 and everything else, but I would love to see him get a crack at 5 furlongs, especially at Longchamp. And he'd be the one I'd side with if I knew he was definitely running, especially at the prices.
What do you think the chances are that he runs? What have you heard?
I know earlier on in the summer they were toying with trying him back over 5 furlongs, coming away from 6. I know Clive Cox had discussed it with Godolphin, but unconfirmed. Like I'm not sure I could tell anybody to take the 10s here without knowing he's running. But if you knew he was showing up on the day, I think he's definitely half that price or a little bit less again.
Fair play. Tom, are you in a similar position with Batash? Do you not trust him after last time?
Look, he's brilliant, isn't he? But as Darren said, I like betting on horses. That's what I do. And do I want to bet on a horse that goes 1-0, 1-0, 0, 1-1 and then looks brilliant? No, I don't. I just will never back him. So he's an irrelevance to me, Batash. I'd love to see him win, but if I'm going to have a bet in the race, it certainly won't be Batash because I don't think even he knows what he's going to do. His jockey and his trainers certainly don't know what he's going to do. So asking me to back him at 6-4 is just a no-no. He's just of no interest to me. I'm with you. I think if Harry Angel was back at 5, I think he'd have a chance. I think Blue Point's beaten Batash the twice they've run over 5 furlongs this season. I can't see why he shouldn't be a big price, and I'd love to see the 2-year-old run in this race. I really would. I think it provides such a different
angle, isn't it?
Provides such a different perspective. We see, we've had Batash versus Blue Point 2 or 3 times this season and Mabs Cross. Let's throw something else in there. Let's provide a bit of entertainment for everyone. I think it'd be great for Soldier's Call to run. And if he did run, I remember Lyric Fantasy winning the Nunthorpe by about 4 furlongs, and there was only a 5 furlong race, isn't it? She won it by absolutely miles as a 2-year-old. It can be done. I'd love to see him in there because I think he's really good, and I think it would provide a totally different perspective on the race. Whether and I'd probably have a few quid on him as well because I think getting the weight he'd have a good shot. He'd have a good shot. Obviously, Batash turns up in the Batash that won at Goodwood. Nothing will beat him, but who knows? Yeah,
I think you've got to give plaudits to Archie Watson as well. He's doing so well this season with his juveniles, and this horse really encompasses that. Where are you on the whole Soldier's Call thing? Would you run him if he was yours?
Yeah, I would do. As Tom said, you want as many interesting angles in there as possible to make it a great race, and Soldier's Call provides that. Harry Angel would provide it too, and as has been said before, it would be very interesting if he ran, because if you watch replays of his races, he's won most of them at the 5 furlong pole anyway, so I don't think dropping back a furlong will hinder him whatsoever. It could even help him, because he can just jump and run. Again, I'm not as dependent on price as Tom is, so Batash could go and win. Yeah, I wouldn't back him at 11-8, but I could see him doing it.
Won it last year, of course.
Well, he won it last year in scintillating fashion, but at York he did pretty much the same thing this year as he did last. For some reason, whatever, York doesn't agree with him, and both his performances there have been awful, but he bounced back last season. And I expect him to bounce back this season, although, I would love Harry Angel to run against him in the 2-year-old, because it would provide just, a few different questions for him. Blue Point is a big price at 10-1, so let's hope they all turn up and we get a fantastic race. I would be with Batash just, but Harry Angel, if we knew he was going to take part at 10-1, that's a massive prize for a multiple Group 1 winner.
Yeah, and you mentioned Batash not liking York. It's a similar story with Harry Angel and Ascot, so maybe at a track like this he could really be allowed to let rip and roll. Right, we're going to take a break, but just after that we'll go back to talking about the 2-year-olds, such a great division this year, and there's plenty more to come.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet the next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org. Welcome
back to this Monday Postcast. Now we're going to go over some of the big 2-year-old races that happened over the weekend, starting off with Newmarket and the Royal Lodge. It was a 1-2-3 for Aidan O'Brien. It's been one of those seasons where it's had its ups and downs, but by anyone else's standards, it's superb. And Mohawk and Sydney Opera House and Cape of Good Hope, they did the business for Aidan O'Brien in the Royal Lodge. Yeah,
they did. Great way to start the day, isn't it, when you get a 1-2-3 like that. The only thing I would say about it, if you're looking ahead, and there's something I mentioned last week, that trainers are very often creatures of habit, and Aidan doesn't tend to run his absolute tip-top ones in the Royal Lodge. You look back to last season, he ran Nelson, and Nelson's ended up being a pacemaker for some of his, stablemates this season. So whether the form's worth a lot, I don't know. He had the winner of the Beresford Stakes yesterday, Japan. He had the 1-2 there as well, actually. They might be potentially more interesting from a kind of classic standpoint. I thought Japan did quite well to win. And he's one of these that will come on in leaps and bounds. I don't know if he might be Doncaster bound, or you might get one more run into him, by the end of the season. But he's quite interesting for next year. But yeah, well done on the 1-2-3 Royal Lodge, but I wouldn't be in a rush to back Mohawk for the Derby.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm a big fan of Japan, but more of that in a minute. Darren, how do you bet on the classics for next season with the Royal Lodge 1-2-3 in mind?
So I'll go to the Derby with this one, Maddie. We are too darn hot, top of the market. Anthony Van Dyke follows up at 12s, Quarto is 14s, and then the one that I really like that we've shortened up on the back at the weekend, actually, who didn't even run, is Mad Moon at 20s. Right. Mohawk is a touch bigger than him at 25s. I know my good friend Sam Harley is quite sweet on Mad Moon for next year, and I'd be inclined to agree. I haven't seen a middle distance colt for next year in Ireland as good as this lad just yet. And I hope we see him once more before the year's out. Yeah,
I love him as well. Big fans of Mad Moon. Tom, are you sort of with us on the Royal Lodge, not that impressed? What happened with Beatboxer and Arthur Kitt? It was sort of a bit disappointing, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were very disappointing, weren't they? I'm a little bit more positive. I thought Mohawk won very, very easily. I think the point is that I don't think Aidan has a clue which one's his best ones. I don't think. I mean, they've all got behind. They've all had illnesses, and they're all coming on forward and back on different rates of knots, aren't they? Mohawk was not fancied compared to Cape of Good Hope. Japan wasn't fancied Mount Everest in the Beresford. They both won, and they both won impressively. I don't think he'd know. I don't think the trainer. I don't think the jockeys will know which one is the best of his middle distance colts. I thought Mohawk won very, very easily. Thought he cantered through the race and hit the front without having to, I don't think Donica did anything on him really to win. The time was perfectly respectable. Pretty good time. He got a top speed figure in the hundreds. I think we might underestimate him. He could easily end up being their Derby horse that we've had. Every year we have one of these funny ones. What was the one 2 years ago that, no one even knew he was in the race, let alone win the Derby? And so I wouldn't be ruling him out at any stretch of the imagination. The thing is, come the spring, they'll all work and they'll all run in the trials, and hey presto, we'll find, they'll probably 5 of them will run in the Derby. I expect Mohawk to be one of them.
Okay, and moving on, we're speaking about, second strings winning. Fairyland was very weak in the betting before she won the Cheveley Park. Tom, what did you make of her win? Because we're all big fans of Pretty Pollyanna on this postcast, but she just didn't really pick up, did she?
She got a dodgy ride, actually. I'm Sylvester de Sousa's biggest fan, but I thought she should have ploughed on. I think she stays really well, and I thought taking her back behind all the other fillies on the near side didn't entirely suit her. I think she only just got going in the final as it was coming to the line. I think she's a lot better than that. Having said that, it was really disappointing, wasn't it? It was really disappointing that she couldn't, at least finish in the first 3. Fairyland is pretty good, isn't it? Good thing was the York form was there for everyone to see, and it was exactly
the Mac and
exactly
Bullet ran
what
another
happened.
Huge race, didn't she?
Yeah, I don't think it was the greatest Cheveley Park. I don't think we saw the Guineas winner now. I did before going into the race, I thought Pretty Pollyanna might win the Guineas. Now I'd be a little bit disappointed on the back of that. I think she's a lot better than she showed. I don't think I'd back her. I don't think she's a Guineas winner. There's probably some maiden somewhere about to run that will come and win the 1,000 Guineas next year, but at the moment the fillies are much of a muchness. So funnily enough, I'd be more positive about the Royal Lodge than I would about the Cheveley Park.
Okay, that's interesting. Mention Aidan O'Brien's. He had a good filly called Goddess, didn't he, that ran, and then she sort of finished last, and not sure what's happened to her, but she could be an interesting one bouncing back for the Guineas. Darren, how did the bookmakers react to Fairyland's win? Because she strikes me as a bit of a sprinting type and like she wouldn't get much further. Do you agree?
I'd be inclined to agree, Maddie, with both yourself and a lot of what Tom said. I think she's a typical Kodiak 2-year-old. She's just ready to rock, ready to go, very, very professional in what she does. How well she'll train on, I'm not entirely sure. And is she a Guineas filly? I'm really not sure either. I would be inclined to give Pretty Pollyanna another chance. We've actually brought her out to 16s from 8s for the Guineas next year, but I thought she was doing nothing but staying on at the line, and I'd be inclined to definitely give her another chance for next year. I can just give you the betting for the 1,000 Guineas here as we have it. So we've Just Wonderful, who on the back of the weekend was clipped into 10s from 12s at the top of the market. Skitter Scatter is 12s. Fairyland is 14s. Goddess is 16s, as is Pretty Pollyanna. Antonia de Vega is 16s, Fashion Star 16s, and 20s bar.
Brilliant. Are you going to wait and see for something else to pop up?
Well, I'd echo what the boys said about Pretty Pollyanna to start with. I thought she got a very ordinary ride for a horse who I think might even end up over middle distances next season. I could easily see her being an Oaks filly. I know she's by Oasis Dream, but she's got so much stamina on the dam side, and Oasis Dream can get middle distance horses as well. He had Midday a few years ago, who's obviously a top class middle distance horse. So to see Sylvester de Sousa being slightly negative on her over a 6 furlong trip, it didn't make any sense at all. It made sense to stretch them, and that's the way she was going to win the race, not from in behind. And she very much ran accordingly. Fairyland, I think they said afterwards as much that she wasn't a Guineas filly on account of her breeding, etc. And I think Just Wonderful, maybe the day before, might have had more influence on the Guineas. Just one beaten horse that I thought ran well in the Cheveley Park was So Perfect, because she was kind of on the other side from the principals, and she got to the front. I think she edged in front on the far side with about a furlong to go, and she kind of won her side. But then the other two, Fairyland and the Mac and Bullet, came down the other side, and she couldn't really do anything about them. So I wouldn't hold it against her that she appeared to fade into third, but she did as much as she could on her side of the race. So if she comes back again this season, maybe she'll go to America for the Breeders' Cup, something like that. I'd still be interested in her and going forward as well. As possibly a sprinter. I don't think she's a miler for next season, possibly as a sprinter for next season. But it was a good race, but I think in terms of the 1,000 Guineas, I would be more interested in Just Wonderful from the O'Brien camp than I would be from Fairyland.
Yeah, okay, very interesting point. Moving on to the Middle Park, 10 Sovereigns won this race from Jash. Tom, I was a bit sort of confused looking at this race because I was really excited beforehand, and then I sort of wanted something to come out and be really impressive, but I do think the form has a solid look to it. I do like the first. I think the second's a really good horse as well. Are you in agreement with me, or are you going to tell me I'm talking rubbish like you have done so many times
every week?
before?
No, I haven't. That's mean. No, I think they're both good horses. I don't think they're milers myself. Having watched the race time and time again this morning, I thought I was a bit disappointed with 10 Sovereigns, actually. I have to admit. I don't know whether it was the ground or the track or whatever, but I thought he was going to... For what I'd seen from him in his 2 runs at the Curragh, was his last furlong was his best furlong. This time I thought his last furlong was his worst furlong. I thought he was going to win by miles coming down into the dip, and then he didn't. He didn't run away from it. To be fair, Jash might be very good, but I think he's a sprinter too. I know they think that he'll get a mile. I don't. I think he travels far too well to get a mile. They were clear of Rumble in the Jungle and Marie's Diamond. Solid horses, not brilliant horses, and they weren't miles clear of them. I thought if they would have been... They had every chance, those two, to put 7 lengths in front of the other two, because it was a strong pace. They hit the front, but they didn't really run away from Rumble in the Jungle, Marie's Diamond and Emirati. They're only 3 lengths behind. I was a little bit disappointed, if truth be told, but look, it's a Group 1, and the 2 of them are 3 lengths clear, and they're going to be Commonwealth Cup candidates, undoubtedly. They're good. As Guineas winners, no, not for me.
I could be talking rubbish here, but with 10 Sovereigns, I feel like he just didn't extend very well. Like his stride was quite short, and like sort of expected him once they hit the ground to go whoosh, but he sort of put his head in the air and shortened his stride. I don't know, I'm just not quite sure. But at the same time, I really like the second. So where do you stand on it?
Well, I think the first thing, they pulled clear of the third, who's no slouch either. So I think it's always encouraging to see horses put distance between themselves and their rivals. So I think it was good from that perspective. Jash was unbeaten coming into the race. Looks like being a very good horse for Simon Crisford, possibly one of the best he's ever trained. So I think the point that I would make about 10 Sovereigns is he's come a long way in a short space of time.
Very true.
I think they've had to rush him a little bit. So it was probably quite an examination for him at the weekend. Coming over here, racing at Newmarket, obviously for the first time. The Rowdy Mile isn't the easiest of courses for a lot of horses. Some don't act on it. So for him to get the job done, he was professional rather than, he didn't go wow when he passed the post, but you thought, well, okay, it's job done. They can go back and work on him over the winter and decide what to do for next season. So, they've achieved their objectives. It wasn't a performance that, had you, going nuts about it, but it was professional and he got it done. And like I said, just think about where he's come in such a short space of time, and maybe it will look a bit more impressive.
The voice of reason, as per usual. Darren, we're all thinking they might be more Commonwealth Cup types, but what prices are they for the Guineas now?
Well, just first of all, Maddie, our traders would be inclined to agree with you. So they've put 10 Sovereigns in as 5-1 fav for the Commonwealth Cup next year. For the 2,000 Guineas, he is a clear second favourite to 2 Darren Hot at 7-1. I'd kind of echo what Nick said there. I think they're going to lay off him for the rest of the year. I think he's in 36 days he's gone from never having run to making his way to Newmarket and winning at the weekend. Like Tom, I've watched the game tape back a good few times, and I just think he was as idle as anything once he hit the front.
He was green,
his ears
wasn't he?
came forward. Yeah, he was green as grass. His ears came forward, which I know is a clear sign of a horse that's kind of having a look around them and not doing a whole pile.
That's what I was thinking of, because he hadn't done that the last twice. That's what surprised me about him. And then Donica got off and said he was green, and he hadn't been. It's really weird that, because the first 2 runs he did, he ran clean away without showing any signs of greenness, without doing anything wrong. I wonder whether the ground was too quick for him, because it looked to me like he was, as Maddie says, he looked to me like I was climbing through the last furlong. His head went back, his ears went back. Looked to me like he wasn't a happy horse in the last furlong. For me, I don't think that was him at his best. I really don't. I think there was something up.
Weird on breeding, because they'd say he wants the fast ground, wouldn't they? And
quite a lot of those no-name nevers like soft ground, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. A few of them do. Yeah, Cosmic Law and a few of the other ones. They're all the trainers are saying they need soft ground for them. So maybe that's it. I mean, it's a guess. I don't know, but it was just something about him in the last half furlong that was a little bit disappointing. I thought.
I totally agree. You've summed it up better than me. We've given him a bit of a mention so far on the Postcast, but we'll talk about Japan a bit more now, because I'm a bit gutted, because I looked at this race beforehand and I thought I was expecting him to be the number 1, and I saw the jockey bookings in the betting and I was a bit sort of confused as to why he wasn't number one. I guess his last win wasn't very good form, but as Watsy mentioned, he did well to sort of side through and get it done in the end. Darren, first off, how did the market react?
So we've introduced Japan at 25-1 for the Derby on the back of this race. Like yourself, Maddie, I was actually looking at the race myself in work over the weekend, and I fancied him to be the number one. And again, then I'd obviously seen the jockey bookings, and that kind of frightened me off a little bit.
Back him foolishly.
Yeah, no, I thought his performance in Listowel Day 1 was unbelievable. Look, he probably didn't beat a whole pile, but just the way the penny dropped about a furlong and a half out and he picked up like nothing I've ever seen, really, really impressed. And even, I think it's fair to say, anyone who watched the race yesterday would say he didn't get the hardest time from Seamie Heffernan. I think he kind of just teased him into it gently. And I was really, really impressed with what he did yesterday. I think 25s could be a little bit generous for next year.
I like him. Yeah, I'm with you. Tom, Japan, a fan or not?
Massive fan. I think he's really, really good. He wasn't number one according to the jockey bookings. He wasn't number two according to the jockey bookings. Exactly. He wasn't number one according to the bookmakers. He wasn't number two according to the bookmakers. He was outsider of the three, but he was by far the best. I love the way he travelled. I love the way he did everything right. So many horses do things wrong. He did everything right. The difference between him and 10 Sovereigns, I thought, was marked. I thought he'd settled. He did everything right, quickened up, and won, I thought, with plenty in hand.
Yeah.
I know it was only a small distance, but the time was really good. It was over a second faster, a second and a half nearly faster than the handicap, the 14-runner handicap, which followed just afterwards with some decent horses in it. Omran won it, and Turbine was in there as well. They're decent horses, them, and to beat them by a second and a half nearly, I thought was a really good effort on only his third run. He's just like Mohawk. I have no idea how good he's going to be, because I don't think anyone does. He'll probably go into a classic trial. He'll probably go into the Derrenstown and the all those races next year. And if the dice rolled up and he falls down on the top, he could easily be their Derby horse. Could easily be, but who knows? I love him. I think he's very good. He's a horse that is in my tracker and will always be in my tracker. But would I back him for the Derby right now? No.
So plenty of love for Japan. Before I try and read out a few listeners' questions, there's a few meetings on this weekend. We'll just touch on Ascot and Newmarket. The Sun Chariot is going to take place at Newmarket with Lawrence. Darren, I know you've got some prices on that one.
We have indeed, Maddie, yeah. So for the Sun Chariot Stakes this coming Saturday, Lawrence heads the market at 2-1, and she's a confirmed runner according to Carol Burke in the Post yesterday. With You is second fav at 9-2. I Can Fly and Voracious are both 6-1. Clemmy is 8-1. Rhododendron is 10-1, and we're 16s bar.
Other than Voracious, Watsy, I think this race might fall apart a bit, but you spoke about her earlier as if you were really keen on her for this.
Was quite keen on her, yeah. She's had a very light campaign. She's only had 3 runs, and I think we're getting to the stage of the season now where a light campaign could pay dividends in terms of you're still relatively fresh and you've got something left to give. Lawrence is going to run in it, and I love Lawrence. She's a fantastic horse, but she had a very hard trip to Ireland last time out, and she's danced every dance this season, hasn't she? She's been here, there, and everywhere. You could forgive her if she just, maybe had a little bit of an off day at the weekend. Hope she doesn't. I love the horse. She's obviously tremendous. But like I said, it is getting to that stage of the season where I think if you've had a light campaign, it's typical St Michael Stout preparation, bringing her along slowly, 3 starts, won nicely last time at Sandown. Her best could be yet to come.
You mentioned Lawrence. I went to see her earlier on in the season. She's just such a gorgeous horse, and I think that run at York was the only time in her whole career she's finished out of the first 2, which is a pretty sensational stat. You'd love to own a horse like her. Darren, where do you stand on it? Are you a Lawrence fan?
I'm actually surprised she's as big as she is, Maddie, to be honest. I think her run the last day in Leopardstown was phenomenal. I would definitely echo the thought that we're getting to that stage of the season where you just don't know what horses are over the top and which ones have more left to give. This girl, she's so hardy, she leaves it all out there when she does run, so you have to wonder when does the petrol tank empty. But I think if she's anything like her best here, I think she leaves the rest of these behind her. I don't think there's not a filly here that's anywhere close to as good. The interesting one might be I Can Fly. She seems to be coming into herself at the moment. I know Aidan was very fond of her earlier in the season, so she might be the interesting one for an each way play, but struggling to see past Lawrence for this weekend.
I know you've got a few horses that you wanted to mention, a horse for your Racing Post tracker.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, look, there was a lot of very top class racing on this weekend, but the one I have here probably went a little bit under most people's radars. I think people might have more to do on a Friday night than watch the 6 o'clock in Dundalk. But there was a horse here trained by James Feen, which was punted off the boards overnight, and Julie did the business. His name is Major Reward. I'm not sure how strong this race was, but I'd encourage anyone who gets the chance to go back and watch this race. He did everything wrong. He came wide, turning for home, which in Dundalk is usually a death knell. He picked up, and he looks like an absolute airplane. I would really, really encourage people to have a look there. Small yard, I know, but I think there's only improvement to come from this fella.
Absolute airplane. Those are the words we like to hear on the Postcast. Nick, any for the tracker?
Well, I mentioned So Perfect. If I give one for the weekend quickly, Il Primo Sole is in the Challenge Cup at Ascot, 7 furlong handicap. He was fifth.
He's one of yours, isn't he?
Yeah, he's fifth in the Britannia early in the season over a mile, ran really well. Looked like a drop-in trip would suit. He ran poorly in the International last time, but he's had a long break since then, so something might have been a little bit amiss. And Gosden actually ran him in the French Guineas earlier in the season, so he must think quite highly of him. If he's back to his best, Il Primo Sole, interesting in that race.
Nice. Tom?
Yeah, Mississippi for me. In the she was second in the Naef Stakes.
Lots of noise about that ride on social media afterwards.
There always is when Jamie Spencer's horses don't win. But she missed the break, didn't she? And was slowly away. She came to win. She took it up a furlong out, and it was just, I think, that the exertions of catching up those 3 lengths. I think she was miles the best filly. I think some soft ground won't be a problem for her, and I think she's a big filly, and I think next year she might come into her own and be a Group 1 filly.
Okay, before we leave you some questions then, first off, Philip Rooney, this is a jumps question, so I'm a big fan of this. Obviously, Edgerton Bleu in recent days, the news that he'd passed away. Philip asked, what's the most memorable King George winner you've ever seen? Darren, I'll go to you first. King George winner that sticks out in your mind.
Well, to be honest, Maddie, I'm a lot closer to your age than I am to the lads, so I've not been long in the game to have too many memorable ones. The one that sticks out for me is Q Card, mostly because I'd backed Vautour, and I've watched this race back, I would say 100 times since, just to punish myself, and I still don't know how Vautour doesn't win. Every time I watch them go by, I still think Vautour has won. I think that was one of the better races, and it was something that really got me into jumps racing at the time, or horse racing in general at the time. So that's probably the one that stands out. It's fairly recent. I think the lads might be a bit more interesting than my answer.
Everyone knows my favourite King George winner, so there's no point me even saying. Tom, see, someone criticised... Sorry?
I don't know your favourite King George.
Oh,
Thistlecrack, of course I do,
there you
yeah.
go. Now, Tom, someone criticised me a while ago, I remember actually, I sort of watched, because I watch all these races back, the Edgerton Bleus and things like that, and someone said something like, oh, you weren't even around when that happened. Well, no, but I still think he was just an awesome horse. I wish there was more around like him these days. You know, Champion Chase winner wins the King George, and he was such a cool horse. Memorable King George for you? Yeah, as well.
Well, Darren sort of hit the nail on the head. 1986. I don't know if you guys were born, but I certainly was. And I was there watching Desert Orchid win his first King George. He still, to this day, remains the best jumps horse I've ever seen. He was my hero growing up, Desert Orchid. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, and he won 4, obviously. The first one, when he ran right away at a big price, was it was when I was 15 years old at the time, and it was just something to take my breath away. So it will always be Desert Orchid.
Oh, how lovely. What's he?
I was going to say, just going on about Edgerton Bleu, I think better than his King George win. Go back and watch a video of his Champion Chase win. It's the most extraordinary race ever. How Tony McCoy boots him round and gets him to beat Direct Route in the final furlong. Yep. Absolutely superb race, that one of my favourite ever. If I was going to give favourite King George, Tom will probably find this a bit weird, but I was going to say Nupsala,
right?
Who actually won. Tom's one was won in '86. I think Nupsala won a couple of years later than that. He was a French.
Year after what?
Yeah, he was a French horse. Nobody had heard of Francois Dumont at the time. This French horse came over with blinkers on, that kind of thing. Andre Pommier, we'd never heard of him. Thought it was a bit of a joke contender. It was all about Desert Orchid and Bow Ranger. They were going to fight it out, and we knew nothing about this Nupsala whatsoever. He came through. They went too fast. He came through, picked up the pieces, won easily, and that was the legend that was born of Francois Dumont. We heard about him after that. We knew about him, and he came back to these shores time and time again.
First gold,
subsequent to that, first gold Algan, and it started a wave of his horses coming over from France. And brilliant trainer, and caught us all unawares, I think, that day.
Yeah. Love this, love that question. Gets us all ears pricked. Sean Owens, now this is a bit more of a tricky one, so I'll forgive you if it takes you a minute, but are there any more horses like Verdana Blue, really good hurdler, of course, won at Chelmsford for Nicky Henderson, running on the flat, who might be worth a punt? What's any that you've sort of thought?
To me.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure there's loads, and I'm sure there'll be a lot running in the Cesarewitch.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because the jumps trainers love to have a crack at that.
Doesn't he? Willie Mullins is always
low
horses.
Low sun on the Cesarewitch.
Oh, there we go.
You've
got the double,
nice
have you?
tip.
You got the Whizzer Hickon low sun double.
Autumn double. Yeah, low sun.
Nice one.
Yeah, good for you. Well, obviously Limoni's another one. I don't know where she's going next, but there's loads of them. But I would just stick to the trainers. Stick to Mullins, Henderson.
Alan King has quite a few, doesn't he?
Alan King. Just keep watching them. Put every morning when they've got a run, click on the website, see what they've got running, and there'll be loads of those hurdlers coming out that they've got in the near future, especially getting ready for the jump scene. So there'll be loads.
So trainers more to watch than horses.
Yeah.
But Darren, in case you've got one, I'll go over to you for that final question.
There's one here, Maddie. I'll give you two. Sharjah is a horse that I'm very sweet on. I think there's definitely a race in the flat with him. A lot went wrong from the last day in Leopardstown. I do think there's a pot to be had with him. And another one that might be a little bit more under the radar is Project Blue Book, who people might remember as a Triumph hurdle, I think it was. Didn't come anywhere there that year he ran, but was picked up by JP McManus in and around that time. And I just think there's a race in him at some stage. How big the pot will be, I don't know. But I think there's definitely a race to be had with him. He could be one for the tracker. John Quinn is a fine trainer. He'll definitely be able to win a race with him at some stage.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that last week. Big fan of John Quinn. Finally, Andrew Bickmore says, is 12-1 a skinny price for Magic Circle in the Melbourne Cup? There's been lots of Melbourne Cup news recently. Predominantly, a few horses got stranded in the UAE, one of them being Withhold, who's the favourite. So I'm not sure how that's all going to work out. But who's on your Melbourne Cup radar?
I haven't really got much on the radar so far. I mean, I would say Magic Circle might be a bit skinny at 12-1. It's a big ask going to Melbourne, isn't it? And he's from a yard who doesn't really make this kind of trip regularly. And I think it's the kind of thing you can improve upon the experience year on year if you've got the horses. If you spoke to Ed Dunlop now, if he sent one over there, they've been there and done it before. So you'd almost, not that you don't trust Ian Williams, he's a fantastic trainer, but just because they've been there and done it, you'd be more inclined to trust one of their horses, I think. So I'd possibly want a little bit more mileage in Magic Circle's price because he's going to be in and amongst, there's no hiding place in the Melbourne Cup, and he's going to be in against, several other top stayers. You just mentioned Withhold to name but one.
Yeah, Ian Jardine, he took Nikita over to run a brilliant race in it. Another one who perhaps wouldn't have been a natural globe-trotting trainer, but he's going to be back again. So it'd be interesting to see if he can better his last year's effort. Darren, any betting on the Melbourne Cup really quickly?
Sure have, Maddie, yeah. So Magic Circle and Withhold are actually top of the market at 12s, alongside Cross Counter, who's also 12-1. Avilius is 14s, Hamada is 18s, Ace High and Marmello are 20s, as is Max Dynamite, and we're 25 bar.
Lots of British and Irish interest this year. Are we going to win it again, do you reckon?
It's very, very hard to say. There's so many variables with the Melbourne Cup. Look, I know I'm not exactly splitting the atom there, as Tom said earlier on, but lots of things are very important, like the draw, what kind of pace they go. I wouldn't be inclined to take 12-1 about anything at this stage. It's a month out. So many things can happen. I think the interesting one, ironically enough, is a 12-1 shot Cross Counter, but I don't think I'd be encouraging anybody to take that sort of price at the moment. I'd be looking for one maybe a little bit further down at a bigger price.
And final word, Tom, have you got your eye on something at a big price for this? And don't say no.
I got my eye on loads of it. It's my favourite race of the year, Maddie. I absolutely love the Melbourne Cup. Don't know why. I don't normally like foreign racing, but I absolutely love the Melbourne Cup. I think it's just a great race. I think we could have 14 runners. Would I back Magic Circle? I'm not sure he's the right type. I know that he's a strong stayer in that, but normally you need a bit of mile and a half pace. That tends to be they tend to be Group 1 horses from a mile and a half upwards that have a very good record in the race. I would be a little bit surprised if he was good enough to win. I think I'm just a massive Charlie Appleby fan these days. I think his horses What did he win? He won the Grade 1 sprint the other day with Jungle Cat. Now,
Yes,
Jungle Cat wouldn't be on our radar as our best sprinters. It does say something about Aussie horses when Jungle Cat wins their sprint. I don't know what's happened to them, but bar Winks, it looks like they're absolutely useless. And I hope you're listening, you Aussies, because you always have a go at us with our horses being rubbish and our cricketers being rubbish. Well, your horses are useless, bar Winks, because if Jungle Cat can beat them, then anyone can. And I think we're going to have 14 runners over there this year, and I think Hamada and Cross Counter for Charlie Appleby have great chances.
For the boys in blue, well, we don't want Magic Circle to be winning because one of the funniest interviews I've ever done was with Marwan Kukash. He said he's going to get the trophy in a thong and nothing else if Magic Circle wins. So there we are. What a note to end on. Don't forget, if you enjoy these shows, please rate, review and subscribe to them. Bruce will be back on Friday for an in-depth look at the racing at Longchamp and beyond. And don't miss our golf and football podcasts on Wednesday and Thursday too. Until next time, enjoy your racing and goodbye.
Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is ThePaddyPower, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather or the gym.